The US government has been tracking data on food insecurity for about 15 years, and the rates that we're seeing right now are higher than we've seen at any point in that time. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated and really shed a light on challenges that many people already knew were going on in the food system, but just made them so much more apparent to the rest of Americans who don't necessarily think every day about where their food comes from. In terms of the food insecurity number, we've gone from about 10.5% in 2019. That number is more than doubled according to recent data as to the number of people food insecure. And then very low food security, which is the number that really tracks onto people in hunger who are actually limiting their food intake, went from 4% in 2019 to 11% now as a result of the pandemic. It's really important to note that these numbers themselves are really inequitable, and that, not surprisingly, tracks onto racial inequity. So in particular, Black population, the Latinx population, are about double as food insecure as white Americans. Workers in the food system face pervasive challenges. They are paid low wages, lack of health care. Many of the workers throughout the food supply, whether working as agricultural workers in the field or in meat and poultry slaughter and processing facilities or in restaurants, many of them have statuses here that don't allow them to utilize programs like SNAP and Medicaid. Most people go to the store, they buy their food, they don't think about all the hands that touch that food along the way. And that has become a lot more apparent to a lot of people in this country, that there are people putting their lives on the line to really keep this food being produced and moving forward. When this country started, about 95% of our population were farmers or were somehow involved in agriculture. And today that's only about 2%. So most people don't really know a farmer. They're not a food producer. In this pandemic, we really saw that these farmers who already face so much risk in terms of both weather and changes in prices and things like that were left hanging with a lot of extra food that they worked really hard to produce. And people suddenly saw images of fields of potatoes and onions that were left to rot because supply chains shut down for some of those foods. People saw milk being poured out in gallons and gallons, many livestock that were euthanized because COVID led to shutdowns in slaughter and processing. Even prior to COVID-19, we were wasting about 40% of the food that we produce in this country. And when you think about all of the resources that go into producing that food, about 18% of our cropland goes to produce food that we throw away. 20% of our water goes to produce food that we throw away. Most people don't know this, but in the US, more than 15 different federal agencies play a role in regulating the food system. There's not one food agency. Even the Food and Drug Administration, which at least has the word food in its title, the bulk of what they do is actually regulating drugs and medical devices. Food is a very, very small piece of it. And this is part of the reason that there hasn't really been a plan, both for the long-term health of the food system, but also for emergencies such as this pandemic. So in 2017, I put out a report with colleagues at Vermont Law School that really looked at a bunch of other countries that have created national food strategies. And then we looked at, in the US, 8 different national strategies that have been implemented for topics other than food. So this isn't a novel tool for us. We use this tool for other things. We use it for things like environmental justice. We have a strategy on antibiotic resistance. The 9/11 Commission essentially created a national strategy on terrorism and national security. Not surprisingly, the last administration didn't pick up on creating a national food strategy, but Canada in 2019 released their first ever national food strategy. And I think really shows us what could be possible here. It was a way to really create transparency and take in information from food producers and from workers and from consumers. And in Canada, this actually led to an investment on the part of government of millions of dollars in hubs in the food chain that really were lacking. So I think doing something like that here can really take the snapshot of where we are now, where do we want to be in 5 years or 10 years, and how can we have more alignment around the agencies that are regulating food, Congress itself to build a path in that direction and make sure that the food system is healthier and more sustainable and grapples with these longstanding racial equity concerns.